In this episode,
to share a little bit of my experience, I didn't know I was in an abusive relationship. That's how it happens, because most people think, oh, abuse, it's a guy that is gonna physically abuse you, treat you bad, whatever. But when it happens to you, things change, and it then becomes obvious that in an abusive relationship, it starts with little things.
Basically that you wear so many masks, and I said it's like being a chameleon, and then you are, in the end, you are gray because you lose all your color, because you're adjusting constantly forever you think you should be, because the truth is we adjust to someone we think we have to be. And this is, to be authentic is who I want to be, is for me the question.
If you're dating someone and they just write you once a week, then I would invite you to look at attachment theory, because that sounds like an avoidant person. And that happens a lot also in the relationships with narcissists, because...
And many men, based on that, tend then to become addicted, is a common issue with men. Also, like, depression is more covered, so that means that it's not diagnosed and you don't show.
And then what I've realized was, like, if when I communicate my needs, the other person thinks I'm too needy, then it's not the person for me. My needs are valid.
Behavior traits is masculine or feminine behavior. Also for women, when they are assertive, then they are in their masculine energy. And I think that's really bullshit. We shouldn't label all that thing.
hello everyone, welcome to a new episode of Wellness in Chaos. And today we have again new amazing guests, Diana and Christian Pereira Piechoczek. So they are both life coaches. They experienced many things in their life, and also their families, their couple, and we are super grateful to have you here, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we hope that you will enjoy this conversation, and our guest as well, and everyone will get lots of value from this episode.
Yeah, hi guys. Really happy to have you in our podcast. And I just want to ask you the first question to introduce yourself in your words. Tell our audience, who are you, what do you do, and why it is important.
Sure.
Ladies first.
Yeah. So my name is Diana. Actually, my coaching name is Diana de Zurafa. I'm a certified coach. I made my coaching certification a couple of years back. And because of my personal experience with an abusive relationship and having learned so much about narcissism, about abuse, about healing from abuse, I decided to dedicate my coaching to help other women in the same journey. So that's pretty much my focus. And the reason why I find this important is that, unfortunately, is a very, very common situation. It's something that happens a lot. A lot of women, a lot of people. I'm going to say women a lot because I focus on women, but I don't want men or non-binary people to feel excluded, because it happens across gender. It's known to be more a more situation for women, but it's across gender. So I really want to work with these women who feel helpless and alone, despite happening all the time, everywhere around us. There is not a person on this earth that doesn't know a friend, a family member that hasn't been going through something like that, which unfortunately it's not something that we can talk about. So I think that's one of the reasons why I find my work so important, because I felt very alone, and I hope that I can help these women feel less alone and less judged too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm Christian. I'm a men's coach, and I made an certification in systems and relationship coaching. And before I was very strong in my career oriented, and I made like climbing the ladder to the top, and I made a lot of training communications, how to deal with people. So I was always good to adjust to others. And so when I met Diana 3 years ago, I found out that I don't know anything what is going on inside me. And now I decided to transport this journey to other men, because I think we mostly just work and we do things and just perform, because there's always coaching for men is performance and nothing else. and we are much more than performing. We have also feeling, even though it's a weakness for men to show them, but we have them and they control our lives. And we are acting based on fear, and I want to change this. So in January, I will launch a short course for men to dive into the topic, and which will orient on energy killers we have. So when we feel drained, and to identify why it is. And later this year, I want to create a course to teach men emotional intelligence, because we know that it has a lot of benefits. But actually, like me and very other men don't know actually what they are feeling. We don't feel good, but we cannot name it. We cannot express it. And this is basically hindering that we have deep relationships. And basically then we have a not so good life quality.
Yeah, amazing.
Sorry to interrupt you. Together, we also have a business called Self-Love Harbor, and we have products for cultivating self-love, like a easy way in to practice self-love. We have anxiety rings that help you calm down. We have a book that we created called My Inner Journey, which with personal growth exercises that you can do on your own. We have our t-shirts, which, when you look into the mirror, it mirrors back to you, I am loved, which is one of our favorite products as well. So it's more like outside of the coaching world, things that you can practice on your own, and easy small things that you can do on your own to connect with yourself, with your emotions, like Christian was saying, and cultivate self-love.
Cool.
Yeah, I love your t-shirts, and I'm sure everyone notices them when you are wearing them outside somewhere in a coffee shop or when it's summer.
The interesting thing, though, is that because I think the camera mirrors it, because normally when people look at us, you don't really understand what's written here unless you really pay attention to it. The message is really to yourself. So when you look into the mirror, then you're reminded you are loved. And I have to be honest, I know it's my product, so I'm biased, but when I'm wearing this t-shirt and I go to the bathroom and I look in the mirror, I'm always surprised and always like, oh my God. And it's it feels like a hug. Honestly, it feels like an instant hug. I love it.
Wow. You should do lots of different quotes on.
It's in the plan.
Yeah. Great. And regarding your
last one question, okay? Just one.
Okay.
Yeah, just for me, it's super inspiring. That you are a couple, you are both coaches, and you have family business. It just seems like you have so many overlapping interests and value, and it just seems like it's a perfect match.
Was that a question?
A comment just in my impression.
Thank you. It's very sweet of you. I think when we get together, those things were not so obviously. So just to give you a background story, we met at work. Christian was my boss. He was the CEO of the company I was working. I was director of business development. So in a very different context, actually, we met. I think what brought us together was sharing a lot of the same values of, how we see life, how we think people should be treated, how you should treat yourself, what do you want to, he was the CEO of them, how we want to live life. And then after we got together, then I think, there is a shared of interests. And then you pick this person is into this world and you're like, oh, I like that. Let me get deeper into that. And we learn things from each other. And I think I was already in the coaching world and personal development. And Christian got more in touch with it through me, the same way that I got other things from his world. But that's how it started.
So you actually understood even more value of each other later, when you were literally opening each other like a box, like another box, another box. Great.
Yeah. Because for me, I was her boss, so it's not the right thing to do to be in a relationship with your employee. Yeah. And I was also in a relationship in that time. And so I tried to ignore that feelings for her, but it didn't work out. And then I actually missed how hard it is when you have no one to talk about that. So I was dealing the whole thing with myself. And then I moved in with her, and then we kept it a secret at work. And so then I could talk to her, but I didn't want to talk too much to her because I don't want to be a burden and scare her away. And so then I found out how hard it is when you don't have someone to talk to. And so I made my research, and there's actually a lot of people, especially men, who don't say they have a close friend. And this is really sad, because you then have to deal with all that stuff with yourself. And it's just a big burden which you shouldn't carry alone. But it took me also a lot of time to find that out for myself. Yeah.
Yeah, the experience we gain is always very expensive.
That's a good quote.
Yeah, and Diana, I want to start with you and the topic about narcissistic abuse. What is actually narcissistic abuse? What is that? How to define?
I want to focus on the aspect of the abuse. The reason I think why me and other coaches in the same field focus on the word narcissism, it's just that it's makes it easier to label a certain pattern of behaviors that makes it easier for people to understand. And with that comes abuse. So this repetition of patterns of certain behaviors that this person have under the umbrella of narcissism makes it easier for the people suffering with abuse to recognize certain patterns. But what's important here is really the abuse. And to share a little bit of my experience, I didn't know I was in an abusive relationship. That's how it happens, because most people think, oh, abuse, it's a guy that is gonna physically abuse you, treat you bad, whatever. But when it happens to you, things change, and it then becomes obvious that in an abusive relationship, it starts with little things. Normally at the beginning of a relationship that's going to turn abusive, it starts really well. It starts feeling like you met the love of your life, you met someone that knows you like no one else, someone that shows excessive interest. And I'm gonna make bold letters here on excessive, because it's gonna feel somehow excessive. But when someone is excessively loving you, you want to believe it, right? There will be signs of love bombing, like showing too much interest, showering with gifts, asking a lot of questions about you at the beginning. They show a very big interest in knowing everything about you, things that they will later use to manipulate you. And then things slowly start turning around. But by the time the things start turning around is when you already fully trust this person, fully value what this person has to tell you, and their opinion of things, how they think about things. So if someone that you love and adore and think of as a partner in life suddenly starts telling you, like, are you sure you want to wear that? Are you sure this person is really your friend? Like, it starts with small things like this, and then it turns into anger outbursts. And then these anger outbursts are always excused with, oh, he had a bad day, he's stressing at work, he's having problems with his family. And then the anger outbursts sometimes evolve into physical violence. But these are all things. Maybe he drank too much. Maybe, that's how you see things when you are in the situation. From the outer perspective, you can tell, like, no, this is abuse. No, this is a toxic relationship. But in your mind, when you're in a relationship, what you see is he had a bad day. He had a bad childhood. He has his traumas that he's dealing with. And it goes into cycles, because it's not like today he's good, tomorrow is bad. It's today he's good, tomorrow is bad, and then he's good again. And then he's great, and then he's bad again. And this goes into cycles. And that's what makes it very difficult for you to understand, is this really abuse? Like, if he's so great the next day, is this really how an abusive relationship is? Because people have very wrong ideas of what it feels like. And yeah, that's why another reason I find this work very important, so people can recognize the signs, because I didn't know. I had to read a book called Women Who Love Too Much to see, like, wait a minute, this is not his childhood trauma. This is not him stressing at work. This is textbook abuse. And I didn't know.
How did you get this book? Was it a random situation, or somebody recommended you? Because I understand, like, sometimes we give this universe gifts that give us a hint that something is wrong. So you got this book, and then you recognized, it's about abuse.
Yeah, it's funny. This the first time I started researching about narcissism, because when I was with my ex, after he physically assaulted me, I told him, either you go to therapy to work on his trauma and his stress, or that's it for good. It wasn't going to be. I know it wasn't going to be, but I told him that. And so he said, okay, I'll say yes to one-time appointment. He went to the therapist. He came back home and he said, the therapist told me that I'm a little narcissistic. And I was like, okay. But in my mind, narcissistic is, a person that's self-involved. Okay. But then I don't know what happened, but something clicked in me and I was like, wait a minute. This word came from the mouth of a psychologist. So it might mean something else. And that's when I started Googling what is narcissism. And then as I Googled, this book popped up in a Facebook group, actually. Someone was commenting about women who love too much. And of course, this title already was like a slap in the face. And I was like, this feels like something I should read. And I started reading the book while I was still with him. And at the beginning, I was a bit shy. I didn't want him to know that I was reading this book. But then at some point he saw the book. And at the beginning of the book, there's like bullet points of like signs that you might be a woman that loves too much. And he read them. And then he looked at me and said, someone wrote a book about you. And I had my confirmation that something was really wrong. But yeah, it was like a mix of investigating what is narcissism. And then this title just popped up out of nowhere. And I felt a connection immediately to this book. And it saved my life. It really saved my life.
Diana, and how to actually recognize narcissistic personality? For example, is there some common things that you can spot, let's say, on the first date with a person?
There's many things, but when I always say, and I have an ebook available on my Instagram page, what I always say is like one sign alone is not enough. So common signs would be like saying I love you too fast, having conversations like the one conversation. One thing you can notice already from the beginning, when they talk about their previous relationships, how do they talk about their exes were all crazy. Their exes, they all did something wrong. And he was the victim in every story. I normally say if everywhere you go, there's a problem, the problem is you. So they have this tendency of like twisting the stories into make themselves look like the victim. And you believe it. And I fell for it too. And I was like, oh my God, the poor guy, really, those are all crazy. But this is like a very obvious sign. But again, this alone is not something. Saying I love you too fast alone it doesn't mean anything. But it's a combination of factors. Like you will feel like something is off, something is too rushed, is too much interest. They normally have a tendency to text a lot, to talk to you throughout the whole day. What are you doing? Who are you doing with? Where are you going? Wanting to know every little thing about you. And at the beginning, you feel like, oh my God, he's so interested. He wants to know. But this is a way to later control you because then they know your routines. They know the people you're with. They know where you go, where you're at. And so if I'm dating a guy who says my exes are all crazy, he gets extremely interested right from the beginning, texting, calling, saying, I love you. You're the one. Let's get married. Let's move to another country. Together with like all these things together, something will feel off. Like, every person I work with that was in a relationship with a narcissist, they say, actually, when I look back now, I can see that something was feeling off.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably so difficult to distinguish when we tend to still believe in these fairy tales like love from the first sight, when we want to believe in a miracle, when there is this spark from both sides from the first date. And we are all, but many of us are hopeless romantics. And we want to have it in our lives.
The Disney story that the prince is going to come and save you. Like, I hate the movie. I loved it as a child, but now I hate the movie The Beauty and the Beast. This movie, like, we are showing this to children, and I was one of them growing up. is a monster that kidnaps your father, treats his employees like objects, then kidnaps you too, and you have to love him enough so that he will change into a prince. This is the message that women grew up with. That when a man is, in a certain way and maybe manipulative, abusive, because sometimes you don't see. That's something I also say right at the beginning. You can notice don't look at how he behaves with you. Look how he behaves with other people, for example. That was the one thing for me and Christian made that really safe, because we worked together. So I could see how he interacted with other people. And in movies like Beauty and the Beast, like, girl, hello, he kidnapped your father. But this is the message that we are brought up with. Like, if you love him enough, if you change yourself enough, like the Little Mermaid, if you change yourself enough, the prince will love you and save you and rescue. And this is completely wrong. It's terribly wrong. And that's why we fall for situations that we shouldn't to start with. Of course, it comes also a lot from the point of self-love and being connected with yourself. If something feels off, listen to it and remove yourself from the situation. But of course, we want to believe that we are loved and someone is interested. And I use this analogy a lot because it makes it simpler for people to understand. Don't go to the supermarket hungry. It's the same thing. If you go dating from a place of, lacking self-love, you can find the love of your life, the great relationship, the healthy relationship, when you're not on top of your game, when you don't have all the self-love. You can, it's possible. But when you go to the supermarket hungry, chances are you're going to grab onto something that's not good for you. You will buy the salad, but you will also buy the chocolate and the cereals. And then even it gives you stomach pain, you will just keep eating because now you already created the habit of eating that, And that's why I always use this example to makes it simple for people to understand. Don't go to the supermarket hungry. Don't go dating from a lack of self-love.
Kristen from our previous podcast would say the same, but in terms of real food.
Exactly.
Yeah, but let's say that there's an opposite story. Person is not texting you like every second, minute, but rather, let's say, he or she prefer to text you maybe once a week, and you feel like you kind of need more attention. Is it something normal, or it should be talked about?
I think, what is normal is whatever works for you, right? If you're dating someone and they just write you once a week, then I would invite you to look at attachment theory, because that sounds like an avoidant person. And that happens a lot also in the relationships with narcissists, because normally the victims, they have tendency to be anxiously attached, meaning is a person that feels anxiously, and because of that, they are very paying attention to the other person's movements, moods, anything they say. Any little change in the relationship can make them anxious and afraid of, being abandoned, being left. And a person with an avoidant attachment style is someone that needs to keep a distance. These are people that normally have fear of deep intimacy. They will be very sexual, most of them. But real intimacy to the point of being vulnerable and really connect and being fully committed in a relationship is something that scares them a lot. So they have the tendency to keep the distance. And I would say someone who texts once a week is someone that keeps the distance. But going back to your question, is it normal? It depends. If it's something that doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. Like, I would always communicate to the other person, like, hey, we're getting to know each other. We are dating. I feel like I would need more from you. And if the other person says, no, that would be too much, then it's not the person for you, and you move on.
But I think a big topic is that we overthink the behavior of others, and we want to label something into being normal. And because we have a friend and she's dating, and then it was they were on a date, and the guy asked for the next date the next day, and then but it's not allowed to do that because for whatever reasons. And I think that's so stupid. If you don't want to go the next day on a date, they know I want to have some time for myself, and it's fine. If you feel the person gives you not enough attention, then tell the person, I feel that you're not really interested in me. How is it going? So make facts by telling what you need and want, instead of interpreting what the other person is doing, what is maybe normal, what is social media telling you, or whatever. Because I mean, every situation is like it is, and it also depends how you perceive this. And I think most of the time you don't know what's going on inside in another person. So if you feel not right in this situation, talk about it or leave the situation. And I think that's the only thing we should do, instead of thinking, oh, that's not normal, or because there is no normal.
Mm-hmm. So the key point here is just to always communicate
Absolutely.
your needs. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. You can never go wrong. And this the communication part is very crucial. And I understand I used to be an anxious type person. And I learned that I was afraid of communicating my feelings and my needs for fear of the other person's reaction, for fear I'm going to sound too needy and then he's going to leave me, like a lot of.
Yes, I know.
And then what I realized was like, if when I communicate my needs, the other person thinks I'm too needy, then it's not the person for me. My needs are valid. Like even when you're an anxious type, there are ways to work around it, but still your needs are valid. If you need more attention, if you need more one-to-one time, if you need more texting, if you need that good morning message, you need what you need and you communicate it. And if the person says that's too much, or like, this is scaring me, I don't feel like this is the right relationship for me, you lost nothing. You seriously lost nothing. You just save yourself from a headache 6 months later. Like if the person leaves you because what you need is not, it's too much for them, then you lost nothing. So really, this is, if you have this thought present to you, the fear of rejection or the fear of losing that person is just going to go away because you're losing nothing.
I feel that I have this anxious type, maybe partially. I don't think fully, but some of the signs, they still exist. And how to help people? For example, there are two people who is avoiding type and who is anxious type.
Mm-hmm.
They like each other, but they are so different. How to improve their communication? Do you have any tips, like maybe 2, 3?
There has to be interest from both sides. You cannot make an anxious person turn into a secure if the avoidant is gonna just be avoidant. You're just going to deny that you have needs and mold yourself to the other person. It's possible that an anxious and an avoidant both change into a secure person. It's possible. It takes work, but it takes willingness as well. So like I would focus more like first, am I anxious? If I'm anxious, what can I do about it? And like not think about the other person, think about what you can do. Number one, obviously, is communicate. Get that fear out of the way. You are losing nothing. You can only gain from having these difficult conversations. So talk about this. If it doesn't work for the other person, and if the other person realizes, okay, I'm an avoidant and I do want to have a more connection with you and more intimacy, but I can't because this is my attachment style and just, it is what it is. If they have the willingness to work, then you can, both work on it together. And there's a lot of like exercises you can do and practice, but it all boils down to communication. But you cannot, as an anxious, try to change yourself and the other person. They have to want to change themselves as well.
Thank you. Yeah, it's very helpful in this modern dating era. People just like canceling each other immediately. What I see.
Oh yeah.
I have one of the last questions about narcissistic abuse. Is it possible to heal yourself from this? Is it symptom, the diagnosis, how to say behavior, how to say correctly, or only with the psychotherapist?
As the victim?
No, like if it's a person
who narcissist?
Who is a narcissist.
Okay, so like there's an important aspect here that is important to clarify. There are people with narcissistic traits, and there are people with narcissistic personality disorder. If you have narcissistic personality disorder, you should recur to psychotherapy. However, there's very little changes. It has been studied over and over and over, and there is no change when you're diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder. What psychotherapy can do for you is help you cope with, the consequences of it, and help you manage the symptoms. So you might be able to have a little more control over your behavior, but you will always come back to it. So it's not something that can be changed. There are people who have narcissistic traits that are very deep into them. I would think that they should seek psychotherapy and understand why. But to be honest, that's not really my concern. So the reason why I use, again, the word narcissistic and talk about narcissism a lot is to help these women recognize the patterns and put a label in that umbrella of certain behaviors that will lead them to an abusive relationship, and then work with them. Like I want to help the women. I want to help them heal, the victims. I did talk to men as well, but help the women heal. I don't know, if you suffer with a lot of narcissistic traits and you feel like it's creating a big impact in your life, then you should definitely seek psychotherapy. I don't think coaching can do much for you, regardless if there's a diagnosis of a disorder or not.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it will be a good idea that I will add the link of your webinar about narcissistic abuse and how to distinguish them.
Yeah,
because it was super valuable, and
thank you.
People should know more about this.
I think everyone. So I have a master class. It's 1 hour. It's called "Am I Crazy or Is He a Narcissist?" I think everyone should watch it, or everyone should know the basics. If I knew all of this before, I would have been able to recognize it a lot earlier when I met my ex. And no one is free from having that happen to them. And I know that there's a lot of stigma. Another reason why women don't really talk about it. It only happens to weak women. It only happens to people with childhood trauma. It only happens to uneducated people. I once had a woman tell me, "Oh, this only happens in the villages. Like I live in the capital. This doesn't happen." And I was in complete shock. Like, how is that? No, it happens everywhere all the time. And the more you know, the more you're informed, the better and easier it will be for you. So definitely everyone should watch it. And I appreciate if you help spread the message, of course.
I will. We will.
And I think everyone should watch it, because it doesn't have to be your partner. It can be a parent, or can be your boss or colleague at work, which is the same impact. Yeah. So that you find out, I mean, at work you can quit at least, but the rest you should find ways to cope with it. So I think, because like with gaslighting, when you constantly feel bad in these situations and triggered, I think it makes sense that you at least know that this happens, and that you know that you are not the problem. Mm-hmm. Because I think often we believe that we are responsible for the situation and that we have to change to solve it. And I think that shouldn't be the case.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Christian, a question to you. What are the main problems that you help men to solve?
I think the main issues for me is being vulnerable and being open. I think men, I mean, we cannot generalize. Yeah, I'm talking about a stereotype I want to work with. So there are different examples, but I think I know there are many others in that. And men don't open up. Men just function, work mostly. So we do task-oriented things. We are doers, and we show how much we care and how good we are by our status, how we achieve. But we are taught from the beginnings that you don't talk about your emotions. I grew up in a household where we were not talking about it or showing emotions or something at all. So how should you learn how to deal with it? But the negative consequence based of this is that these emotions or experiences you have, this is not really granular. So you feel bad and there's a lot of things going on and you act in certain ways. But if you don't know why this is, so what is the emotion behind, then it's hard to change or identify the problem. And many men, based on that, tend then to become addicted, is a common issue with men. also like depression is more covered. So that means that it's not diagnosed and you don't show. Also, I read a book about an US therapist who works 30 years into male depression. And he says if a woman comes with the symptoms to a doctor, he says you're depressed. If the man comes, he's not depressed. So it's mostly even not acknowledged and treated that way. And I think there are a lot of studies. If you go with Movember movement, when you see like the suicide rate of men in Europe is 4 times higher than women, because men tend more to violence, and that also violence to themselves. So that is, I think, one difference between men and women is that case. And that if you don't talk, if you don't know what happens, it all boils up. And if you don't have the ventile to leave it out by talking about it or processing it, then it will be boiling up until a point where you either snap and, I don't know, do things you shouldn't do and hurt the people around you, or you hurt yourself. And I think that's something I want to change, because like me, I made my career and always working, and I think looking backwards, then I knew that something wasn't right for me, something was missing. But in the end, I just pushed through that, and I also made like a survey online for men what they actually want, and I said, how you're feeling, and then good, bad, or okay, I'm pushing through. And most of them said I'm pushing through, and I think that's what we do. We push through that. We don't complain. We just say it will go over, but the reality is that it will not go over. You can ignore it, but I say it's like a boomerang. It will come back to you, and maybe it hit you hard when you don't see it coming. And so I want to work with that. Men can find out who they are. And I see also a lot on social media that we talk about behavior traits is masculine or feminine behavior. Also for women, when they are assertive, then they are in their masculine energy. And I think that's really bullshit. We shouldn't label all that things, because it's just a topic. You're an individual person, and you have your needs and your wants, and you should be fine in everything. And I think we tend to label too many things. Like we create a picture how we should be as a woman or a man, and we are trapped in that picture. And I think most of the time we create something which we can never achieve. It's so far high that we are never good enough. And I think many of us, no matter if it's man or a woman, we work on being just good enough. And I think if we give 100% all the time from the point that we want just to be good enough, we want to fit in, that's not a good way to start. That's why we have Self-Love Harbor, and we want to work that you have an intrinsic self-worth, and that you don't have to fear that you're not good enough. Because what I found out, if you change it, then you find also people where you not fit in, you belong to. Because before, when I found out there's something wrong, I just worked more up to the next promotion, and then I compensated it with expensive vacation trips. But also the causes, you get tired, you burn out, you isolate yourself even more. I'm an introvert, so my social battery goes also down really fast. So in the end, then you isolate yourself completely. And I think that's the worst thing you can do. The social connection is one of the most important factors about your life quality and your life expectancy. So I read, if you have no social contacts with someone, it's like if you are a chain smoker and alcoholic at the same time. So that's the impact on your body. And I want to help men to not feel alone, because that I felt a lot of my life alone. And I had no one to share. And many of this is based on the fear you have that you are not good enough. And I think I want to work on that to identify. But I think for every man, it's individual situation. So you have to see where's the point for yourself, and be fine with who you are, and focus more on who you are, who you want to be, instead of pretending to be someone else.
Yeah, I think many men, they hold a wrong picture about masculinity as a concept.
Yeah.
And they think that probably being vulnerable is not a good thing for men, and they just not get used to being vulnerable with friends and discussing personal things. But there is also this phrase that I heard this phrase: men grow through suffering, and women grow through love. And Yeah, it's quite interesting, and I'm not sure if I have a strong opinion about whether it's right or not. But let's say if you're going through breakup and you're a man, like should you talk about this with your friends, or should you just experience this mental pain and live through it?
I do believe that everyone should have, because men mostly, when they talk to someone about their inner world, then it's their partner. But if you have problems with your partner, you have no one to talk about. And I think you should have someone, or not only to talk about your problems, also about the good things. So share the things, because we are social animals from evolution side. So we need other people. We are not built to be lonely wolves. We are built to be in groups and together. So I think if you go through a breakup or a hard situation, you should open up to someone. I mean, of course, if it's a stranger or a colleague and you don't have the deep relationship, then it's hard to, I don't know, throw something on the table and say, this is my big problem. So you will scare them away or maybe overwhelm. So you have to train step by step to find the people you can open up to. And I think it's the best thing to start today, that you're not in the position that you suffer or have a problem, so that you create already your people around you. And it doesn't have to be 10 friends. I mean, 1 or 2 friends with whom you can talk to. This will already help you a lot. Someone you can share also your values, your opinions, and maybe sometimes they give you also something back and say, because we are too hard to ourselves most of the time, we wouldn't talk like we talk to us. We wouldn't talk to our friends or colleagues or even our worst enemy. We wouldn't be so cruel as we are to ourselves. And I think that's why it helps to talk to someone else, because they give us a mirror and show us also how worthy we are.
Christian, and what was your crushing moment that you realized that, I need to change how I'm expressing my emotions and how I'm going through my emotions? Maybe it was several years ago, and then you realized, I need to switch.
Yeah, so I'm German. During my childhood, I'm wearing a mask of calmness, and I'm really calm. So there's not much which can shock you. And I hear a lot that Germans are so cold and whatever. And I think until maybe half a year ago, it would bother me. And I would think I have to express myself in a certain way.
Right now, I want to make a quick pause. As many of you guys know, I used to have severe acne condition. Right now, my skin is not perfect. Sometimes I'm breaking out, get acne scarring and pigmentation. And I can get upset. I'm just a human being. And the tool that helps a lot my skin and mood is red light therapy, especially this red light therapy LED mask by Current Body. I use it over 6 months, and what I have noticed, my skin feels glowing and acne scarring fades away much faster. Additional bonus, it was scientifically proved that LED light therapy helps with our mood, especially during these dark days. I use this mask or in the morning or in the evening, depends when I have time. It takes just 10 minutes to care about your skin. If you want to try this LED mask by Current Body, I have 15% discount for you. My code is Maria with double ICB. Also, the link is in description box.
But then I'm reading actually the book, how emotions are built. And then they made a text, because we try to tell people how you express your emotions. And then they make a text, they make a picture, and then you have 4 answers. What emotion does this person have? And if you have the 4 options, then I think 50% of the people find the right answer. If you remove this, then it goes down to 30%. And so this person made a lot of research, secondary, and then she found out that there is no unique expression of emotions, that we, even for anger, we have individually several ways of expressing it or going through this and experiencing it. And I think it doesn't matter. You should define your way to say, this is how I feel, and there's not a list of emotions you need to know or to handle. It's just you have, because Portuguese people have saúde as a concept of emotions. I don't know what it what it means. Saudade, saudade, which is, I don't know, would be a lot of word. Or Dutch people have gezellig. Or other countries have their own emotions. I learned, like in Greece, there are two guilds. So one guild for minor things you do and one for big things. And I think Ukraine probably has also emotions you cannot translate. So it's a lot about culture, about how you grew up, what you see, what you experience. And I think what I experienced was I grew up with MacGyver and Chuck Norris and A-Team and Rambo and all these dudes who never ask for help. They can battle anything. So strong man. And this is what, instead of Beauty and the Beast, we have the men who are capable of everything and conquer the world. So you don't cry. Rambo didn't cry when he, I don't know, had to amputate his arm almost. And so this is something we got shaped into that, yeah, how we should be. And I think that's the biggest problem. So I don't want to talk to someone and say, you have to express how you feel in a certain way. And I think it's also important, if you are in a relationship or with a friend, never judge the emotion you have or your friend has, because it's a unique experience you have and there's nothing wrong with it. And in my relationship coaching, I learned if someone tells you there's always 2% truth in it, and you should look into why could this be true, instead of judging and saying, no, it's not right. How you feel, you should feel a different way, because I think that adds a lot of our problems.
I'm talking about Germany, especially German men. I love this topic. How do you feel? Modern men are scared of rejection right now? Was it different before? Because as a Slavic woman who moved to Germany, I was surprised that men just don't do first steps, at least on public at all. It was, for me, culture shock. And I'm curious, is it different compared to the past, or it's just a culture thing?
So I learned from my wife that if you are a man and then go to Portugal, because the women make the first step there, so to solve that problem.
They don't necessarily make the first step in an obvious way, but they're more aggressive when they're interested in a man. It's different. But the dating scene is more like I relate to what Maria was saying. Normally men, invite for the first date. It's not women.
Fortunately, my first steps in dating is a long time ago. So I met her at work, which is easy. I think it's also the best place to find your partner, because you see how they behave also in stressful situations. But I remember when I was young, I was deeply scared of making the first move. And I don't know, probably it's a cultural thing, but I think this fear of rejection is in any one of us in a certain degree. So and I think today it's even harder, because we worry too much if someone will like us, and we try to pretend to be that ideal person for them, and we worry more, why is he not answering me or she, and or he's answering too early, or we are so much pretending or thinking about how it should be, instead of focusing how to present ourselves. So I think also, but you came also after COVID. I think this also changed a lot, because we were trapped at home, and for me it changed a lot, because I'm still, when there's a lot of crowd, I still feel a little bit uncomfortable in it sometimes. So I think that maybe also had an impact.
Yeah. Christian, what would you recommend for a person who is working fully remotely, doesn't go to office, and is there only option dating apps, and what he should do?
I think a good recommendation would be maybe do something you like, a hobby, or connect with people who like the same thing you do. And I think you have initially something to talk about, which makes it much easier, instead of being in a club or somewhere else where you have to find the entry point. But if you do something, I don't know, go dancing, singing, or wherever, you find people who have the same interests as you, and then you find already something to connect to. I think that would be the case. Go out there and show yourself. Doesn't have to be then the partner. Maybe you find friends on that way. So I think if you're stuck at home, then go out and try to connect with others by doing something you like, because that's the best thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do agree. Like when I moved here to Lithuania, I tried to join some clubs like running clubs, yoga. So for me, just going to places of my interest was a really good way to socialize with people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, question: what is your overall like take on dating apps?
I have zero experience.
He
You can
has.
tell.
He's a lucky guy who has never experienced. No, I don't know if that's lucky or not. I experienced it, and I think it's up to you to make the experience of it. And just to clarify, like in everywhere, there's good people, there's bad people. And I think as long as you're like my narcissistic ex, I met him on Tinder, to be very honest. I also met one of my best friends on Tinder. Like it really depends. As long as you're connected with yourself and you know that you can remove yourself from a situation that doesn't feel good, you know, there's no risk. You go, you meet people, and sometimes it goes well, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you meet wonderful friends. Sometimes I've been to weddings that were Tinder matches. So I actually know more than one married couple that came out of Tinder. So you know, it's up to you and being connected to yourself. It's not really about the dating apps, I would say.
I think one thing would be maybe right about yourself, what is important for you, what you're looking for. I can imagine that a lot of people write down there because then it comes back to marketing that you want to be interesting for people, and you write maybe things which are also on the surface, which other people think, I don't connect with that because it's like blah, it's nothing, they don't know who you stand for. But we actually had the idea because we also had a card game in our shop. It's Dare to be Curious, and it's like practicing to be vulnerable, and it starts with easier questions and then goes higher. And our idea was in the next summer to make this as a dating or gathering, and then people who are strangers meet there and play the game, because then you share stuff, and then if you have the right people, you have great deep conversations, and this can open something. So I think we should maybe create more opportunities to really deeply connect. I'm not sure if the dating apps are the place for that.
No.
Yeah, I really like the idea of gamifying something like dating and the process of getting to know each other. For example, I had a walk with my friends, and we went to a place where they had this card games with different questions, very thought-provoking questions. And when you actually get asked this question, you start think and you just open up more because you have a specific question and you just start to build up your opinion about it.
Yeah, exactly. I think once my therapist told me back in the days you had to have intimacy to have sex, and nowadays we use sex to escape intimacy. And that stuck with me because it's really happening these days with like the fast dating world with the apps. You go, you meet someone, and it's, you know, sex starts right from the beginning. People are more comfortable being naked in front of each other than to open up to each other. And I think depends what you're looking for in the dating apps. If you're just looking for hookups, or if you're just looking, you know, for adventure and fantasy, which, you know, is totally fine as well. But if you're looking for real connection and real intimacy, playing card games like that one, like the one that Christian was also mentioning that we had in our online shop, that can really help people open up and be vulnerable and be fully emotionally naked in front of each other. And that's how you can really deeply connect. And, you know,
I love this comparison a lot. Like, I haven't thought that, but it's absolutely true. People got used a lot to see naked bodies through media, through experiences, dating experiences, but to open souls, it's a very intimate thing.
You will have sex on the second, first, third date, but you will not talk about your childhood trauma. Like, what? No.
I talk on my first dates about childhood traumas.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, if you want to connect and have a deep connection with someone, you have to be willing to also give the first step and just
Yeah.
be open for it.
Yeah. And just to know that we met on Tinder, me and Mitro, so
See, there you go. You can create really beautiful friendships with dating apps. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that it would be interesting to compare like a modern man
Mhm.
and a man from, let's say, 20th century or even 18th century, and see like what are their perception about women. Because right now, men has access uh, to porno, to all the access to see like a thousand naked women, and I just curious like how would their perception about women dating look like if comparing.
I think you're talking about hunting, like this masculine trait that men need to hunt for women in the past to get them, and now nobody is hunting. Do you mean this?
I think when you say like 100, 150 years ago, the world was different. And I think
Yeah.
like for our parents, it was more important to have food on the table and like to survive. In a case, her parents started working with 10 years old. So, and I think that's something they brought into us, so that we were really focused and working hard. We still cannot relax. Yeah, when we relax, we feel guilty. We say we can only make vacation when we achieved something. So it's really hard. And I think back in the day that was that way, and you were looking into something different in a partner. And I think you were also more committed to stay into that relationship. I don't would say if it's good or bad, because sometimes it's definitely not good to stay in that, because also what other people expected was that you stay in this relationship no matter what, or it was maybe arranged. And I think today we live in a world of unlimited possibilities. I mean, for you guys, it's a little bit different in Ukraine because it changed, but like for the rest of Europe, Germany, we live that everything is possible. I think it's more the case that we have the fear of missing out, and that's why we also don't want to, I don't know, connect too early or commit too early, because maybe there's something better around the corner, or I don't know, maybe we make the wrong decision, because we often treat like the path we are walking on is not changeable anymore. And but the truth is we're changing constantly, and you have to talk with other people. You have to cultivate relationships, not even like the romantic relationships, also friendships, and they grow or you grow apart. And I think today is more the point that you go maybe and look for the things which are missing instead of for the things we have, like more gratitude in the things which are good, and maybe work on changing the other things. But I think we easily got scared because we want this 100% perfection we are taught by movies, social media, but it's all fake. It's all illusions. But we still hunting the dream. Like I said, love of the first sight doesn't matter if you love someone after 5 weeks or 5 minutes. So it depends if you connect, if you have the same values, if you share something. And I think that's maybe the case. I think it's also harder because I think nowadays people are more mean, especially in the internet. Like how we treat each other is, we think it's anonymously, so we don't care many much about the well-being of others. And I think back in the day, you had your close community, and you had to act in a certain way because then you were stigmatized in it. But today we think because we hide behind the handy, the smartphone, that we can do anything. We can be mean and we don't have to control. And I think so that's also the case, because there are people out who are not nice, who want to hurt you. But I think one thing to learn is that don't give them what they want by feeling hurt by them. Just ignore them and say, the other people, there's enough people out there who are great. And I think don't give up because you had some bad experiences.
Right
Yeah.
now we live in a world where we have extreme amount of choices, as you said, dating choices, work choices, where to live, and it can be so overwhelming that
Yeah.
people start losing themselves. there is such a thing as self-loss. I recently read and finished a book called It's on Me about self-loss and how it's easy to lose your authentic self.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I want to ask you guys, what does it mean to be authentic self?
To be honest, it's very challenging. It sounds very pretty and idyllic, but it's honestly one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. It's like to fully be your authentic self, because sometimes you don't even know what that is, you know? And that's what I've been working on 4 years of therapy, is like, who is that? I want to be my authentic self, but who is that? You know? And it takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of intention. I think that's the right word. You need to intentionally and consciously be present in who you are and why you do things, and what, you know, what's behind your motivations. And I think being your authentic self is very freeing. It's very liberating. And I think, to me, what it means to be my authentic self, I feel very free from going back to what we spoke about earlier, I feel very free from the fear of losing others, because I lost myself once. And I know that is the worst pain anyone can have. When you lose yourself, there's nothing that can bring you happiness. And we all do this mistake, some more, some less, but you mold yourself to fit in school, with your family, with your coworkers, with your friends, whatever. And at some point you lose touch with yourself, and it happens especially in relationships. You lose yourself to, you know, create that persona that fits the relationship that you imagine, and that will never bring you happiness. You can gain the person next to you, but you will lose yourself, and that will never bring you happiness anyway. So being connected with myself and losing the fear of losing others, and being conscious of never wanting to lose myself again, I think that's the foundation for being my authentic self. And just be present, be present and conscious on who you are and who you want to be and what are you doing.
I think,
And guys, yeah. Sorry, Christian, please.
I think you are your authentic self. I mean, sometimes authentic self is also doing nothing, which is also not right. You should challenge yourself also in uncomfortable situations. But for me, is if you mostly of your day feel good about it, if you come home and you feel drained, or you wake up and you don't want to go out, or you don't want to be in a certain situation because it's draining you, triggering you, then you are not authentic. And I think it can be you live by your values. Sometimes you are in a job where you have to act a certain way, but it's deeply against who you are and what you want to do. Then it can be really draining. Or you have the wrong people around you and it's in toxic relationship. This can also be really draining for certain reasons. Or we have a lot of roles we take. We are sister, brother, daughter, father, a boss, and whatever, and all these roles are different. So me as a friend, I act differently as being a CEO and so on. And I had to learn, because I thought being a leader in a position, I have to act from a certain distance. So I have to distance myself, and this is the old ways I learned, until I learned I don't have to do that. I can be showing more of myself, and I also found out that it's actually helping me even more in the job. And I think it's more about finding out what are you pursuing, and if you do some things because you think you have to do them, but maybe if you look into that and you find out it's really not important for you, then you know that's not what you want and it's not authentic. I think you should look into what you want and need. And I mean, we cannot have everything we want, but sometimes, and there's a lot of these small things where we do things which we don't want to do, or we are in a situation we don't want to be. And if it's too much of these small things, then we feel drained and lose ourselves doing that. So I think that's basically that you wear so many masks, and I said it's like being a chameleon, and then you are, in the end, you are gray because you lose all your color, because you're adjusting constantly forever you think you should be. Because the truth is, we adjust to someone we think we have to be. And this is, to be authentic is who I want to be, is for me the question. and how I want to go through life. And this, who I want to be, is also changing when I grew older, with new experiences, with the people around me who inspire me. If I have around people who inspire me, there's much more possible that I would ever dream of becoming. Or if I have the wrong people around me, then I will throw in a really shitty situation.
Yeah, thank you for your answer. I think many people struggle with this question, how to be authentic themselves. Even I'm not sure completely what does it mean for me to be authentic myself. And I want to ask you, maybe you could recommend some steps, practices, or exercises to identify that you are on the path of becoming authentic yourself, that you are not losing yourself.
I think one thing is definitely think about the values, what is important for you, and how good is this implemented in your daily life. So when are situations where you maybe have to act against them, this is a good way. I think sometimes setting boundaries is one question. So say no, and if you said yes to something, but then after some time you realize you didn't want to be, then you should question yourself and say, why did I say yes? And mostly it's the fear of being abandoned when you say no, because you think you have to do it, that the other one will not leave you. And I think that's a daily life exercise, because I think every one of us knows that feeling. You do something you don't really want to do, but you said yes in the moment, because it's an automatism you developed. You always say yes. But then after some time you say, why did I say yes? And then you should grab this and say, next time I change this.
Yeah.
And learn maybe not to answer something. If someone asks you something and you're really not sure, just take the time and think about it instead of blurting the yes out. And I think this can help already a lot.
I think, sorry, if I can just add something to it. I think it's easier when you're being authentic. It's difficult to be aware of it, to be conscious of it, but you realize more when you're not being authentic that something is wrong, right? So it's like if you ask fish how's the water, they don't know. It's just, it is. That's where I am at all times. But when you're not being authentic, that's something that will come out as you feel anxious and you don't know why. You feel extremely tired. You don't know why. You start losing interest in things that you had interest before. You stop wanting to hang out with some people. You have like super low energy. And in those moments, then you should ask yourself, what am I being inauthentic about? You're probably spending way too much energy pretending to be something that you're not, pretending that you like something that you don't. And that is what's draining your energy, is to be inauthentic about something. So like following your question, what can you do to be authentic? And just putting it the other way around to bring you back when you're being inauthentic, because that's when the real problems will, come up.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's very important also just to ask yourself that any decision that you do during your day, is it your choice and decision, or it's somebody, or it's decision to please someone, or it was the decision as a pattern from the past, what was controlled by your parents or another family members. And for example, we can wake up one day and realize that we work, and where we work, it was not our decision to go there. With studying, with partners, even what we wear, it was not our choice, or hair color, everything. Even people don't know sometimes what they like to eat.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's a very important point you touched. It's about, I always ask myself, what am I being inauthentic about? And the question that comes after is always, what am I not being responsible for? Exactly that. Like, I am responsible for everything that happens in my life. And if I feel off, if I feel down, if, I lose energy, whatever, I am not taking responsibility for something in my life. I'm letting things happen. And it's taking me, it's like if you're in a sailing boat and you're letting the wind dictate how things go. And you have to take control over, you have to be responsible for, no, I'm guiding this boat and I know where it's going to go. And it's, like we said before, easier to notice when things are less good than when things are indeed good, but it's a very important point. Like, what am I being inauthentic about? What am I not being responsible for?
It's very interesting, this idea that the place where you lose your self authentic, it means that you're losing control over this place and your responsibility. But what to do if you don't have energy? You feel like that you don't have this power to control everything, all your choices. You're just exhausted.
I think you find your motivation in thinking like, I can stay laying here on the couch and, out of energy and nothing will ever change, or I can do my best to push through that, initial push and have the opportunity of creating something better. Here, I'm in the certainty that nothing will ever change and I will stay in this misery and stay in this lack of energy. But if I make this push, if I believe in myself enough, there is a big chance that something will change for good, and use this as a motivation. Of course, it's not like a one-click thing, yeah. And if you are really low on energy for an extended period of time, I recommend you see a psychotherapist or at least talk to a coach. But if it's a momentary thing, really dig deep into it and think like, I am responsible. I can do something about it. With responsibility comes freedom. With freedom comes responsibility. When you take responsibility for your life, you are free to make decisions. You are free to take control and enjoy this freedom. When you let go of the responsibility of your life, that's when you feel like things are out of control. That's when you feel stuck. It's a prison that you create for yourself.
But I would like to provoke you guys, and I say 90% you know one thing you can change, but you're afraid of doing it for whatever reasons. And this is, we want to stay in our comfort. I know so many people who work for 10, 15 years in a workplace, which is toxic and not good, but they stay because they are afraid, I need my salary or whatever. I need this person, I will never find someone else, or if that person doesn't like me, then I don't know, I'm worth nothing. And I think as long as we go with that mindset through the world, there will always be something. And I think the authenticity should be that we are comfortable in doing what we want and take a risk. And because we always look into the fear and the threats, that's how we build as a human being. We are for survival. But it's all created in our mind, and we try to please everyone. And as you said, what our parents told us, how we grew up, how society shaped us. And I think that starts when we come to the world. Then men get blue stuff and girls pink, and girls play with with dolls and all this kind of stuff. So we are shaped in a certain picture. And I think we should be really aware of it. What picture is it actually? And sometimes I think in our subconscious there are many pictures we want to be, and they are steering us in different directions. And I think the thing, if you want to change, is look into that in all aspects of your life. I think have a coach or a good friend or someone, talk to people about that and find out what you really want, and then try to change it in little steps, not the scary ones. But sometimes I do believe we know what is wrong. We know the answers to that, but we're really afraid of doing them.
That's where coaches come in.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, where I noticed that people who understand what's their life mission, something that they are super excited about, they're way more happier in life overall. Even though they might go through some challenges, struggle, but knowing their life mission, they feel inner fulfillment, because they know what they're doing. But sometimes it's hard to identify your life mission, like what you want to do. And people, so many people just work on the jobs they hate, do the routines they hate, and nothing changing. Maybe you have some recommendation for those people how to actually get out of this
vicious cycle.
Vicious cycle.
Coaching.
Yeah.
There are two types of people. And I would say there are the people who feel stuck in their life and will just continue being stuck. or go out and look for answers. Because what you said is absolutely right. When you know what your purpose is, what your mission is, you have a great sense of fulfillment and belonging that makes you incredibly happy despite all the adversities. But you also need to do the work to get there. Not everyone knows. I didn't know when I went to university exactly what I wanted to do. I didn't know when I started my career exactly where things were going to go. But I kept looking for that answer. I kept going to therapy, having coaching, going to personal growth seminars, reading books. Like, I kept searching for that answer. And I know a lot of people that are just, like Christian said, 10 years in the same job, and they said, yeah, but I don't know what else I could do. And then Netflix on, that's it, problem solved. We never talk about this again. You have to look for the answer. And you can look in books, you can look in podcasts like this one, for sure. It will bring up things for a lot of people. But you can also go work with coaches like us. And our job is to help you uncover what is inside of you. So if people don't know exactly how a coaching session goes, basically our job is to ask you questions. A coach will not tell you what to do, will not point you in a certain direction. A coach will just ask you questions to help you reflect on yourself and find the answers for yourself. Challenge your views, because a lot of times you have limiting beliefs of, how much you can do, how much you can achieve, or I'm a woman, I shouldn't be doing this, or because I'm Ukrainian, I should be doing that, like things like that. And with the coach, we'll be like, okay, at what point did you start feeling that way? Where did you create this belief? Is it possible that some other people have, the same background that don't have the same belief? And like work on that and help you uncover the answers. And I think coaching would be a good way to go.
Yeah. I want to ask you about your wedding vows.
Oh yeah.
Can you share some of them? Your wedding vows. We know they're special.
We decided for our wedding that we wanted to make a promise to each other, make vows, of course, and that we wanted to have like a 10 commandments for our wedding. No, it's not really it's like the basic foundation for our wedding. And we created, I think there were 10. One that was very important to us, and this is a serious conversation that we had more than once, was we are not responsible for each other's happiness. And this is something that for me was very important, and Christian, of course, as well. Going into a relationship thinking the other person is responsible for your feelings, for your happiness, for your moods, again, you lose control, you feel stuck. If you take responsibility for your feelings, for your emotions, for your life, that's something you can do about it. But it was important for us to make that clear, and that's like, I think, the main and most important.
Next to share food.
To share food. There's one there that also says always share food. I have a little bit of a problem with sharing food.
Is it really in your wedding vows to share food?
Yes, I think it's number 10.
Yeah.
Number 10 is always share food. Christian insisted that it was there. I understand, not gonna deny. It's an important one, but definitely the taking responsibility for your own feelings, continuously working on ourselves to be a better person and to be a better partner. Again, I cannot change Christian. I cannot turn him into the partner I want him to be. I cannot turn him into a different person, but I can do everything I can to be a better partner. And if he does that too, then it's fine. We will meet there in our crossroads of our own paths of personal growth. Another one is dancing in the kitchen.
So one important thing is to be silly and be allowed to be silly and let your inner child out, because that's something I always controlled myself, and with her I can be, I don't know, just silly, a child, and doing nonsense. And I think that's really important, that we allow the other one to see that, but that we allow ourselves also to do what we want to do, have fun, and maybe don't think too much about consequences, and don't control ourselves too much, and just enjoy the moments as they come.
Let that inner child live, because our inner childs also married each other, and they have to come out sometimes.
I love this.
And
I love this.
and for us, how our inner child come out to play sometimes is dancing in the kitchen. We like to just dance like two idiots in the kitchen, and we play a lot of PlayStation games. Like we love playing video games together, like I used to do when I was a child, and it was like a great way to spend time when I was a child. And I still let my inner child do it, and we do it together, and it's great. And it's very important. It's really, that's part of like being fully authentic with the other persons. Like we are business partners, and we have like very serious business conversations. Again, we work together in the corporate world, in a very formal or a more formal environment. We are lovers as well. We are best friends, but we also have these two inner children inside of us that needs to come out. So dancing in the kitchen is another important one of our vows.
Yeah, amazing.
It's very inspiring.
But we also, to come up with that, Diana made a relationship vision board, which she never published and should do, in my opinion,
Maybe.
with some deep questions. And this, so before we came together, actually, we made somehow an assessment center, and we were meeting at work, after work, and we're having a serious conversation about what do we want and what do we need in life, and be completely
Cards on the
honest about
table.
this.
Mhm.
Exactly. And then we made an even deeper one, and then based on that, we came up with the idea that this should be our wedding vows and the things we want to live by. And I think it's important that you have these conversations. And like, I don't know, one wants kids, the other one don't want to have kids, and then you never talk about it, and then 10 years later you will end up the relationship based on this or whatever. And I think it's just being open what you want, and be it in the beginning, because then you're not wasting the time. Because then if there's always a question mark about a really important topic for yourself, you should address it, and you should say how you feel, what is important for yourself. And the other person maybe doesn't have to like every one of that, but should at least accept it and shouldn't be negatively affected by that.
Yeah, I think, like I said before, especially after an abusive relationship. So Christian was my serious relationship after the abusive. And to me, and this is the thing that I've worked with, the women that have been through the same as, again, one, losing that fear of losing someone. Because if you're losing someone for being your authentic self or expressing your needs, you're not losing anything. And then like bring that vision together. I think we did our relationship vision board. We were 3 months together for 3 months. It was right at the beginning. And it was a Valentine's Day thing. It was like a date night. We put the Netflix fireplace thing, and we made a picnic in our living room. And we just went through the vision board questions, work out together. And as I work through it, it's like, I don't care if the vision is not going to come up the same. Because one, I'm not afraid to lose him. I'm afraid to lose myself. Two, I cannot change him, and I'm done changing people. If he fits in my vision, great. If he doesn't, then it's not meant to be. And of course, there will be some sadness. Obviously, you grow attached to that person. But again, I am a lot more scared of losing myself than losing the person that I'm with. So with these two things, we just work on that vision, and turn out great because we end up getting married. But I know other couples who did that same relationship vision board, and it did not go that well. Some of them didn't even go through the first page without getting into a real fight. And like we talked before about the dating, you should have these conversations early enough. Like you should be able to discuss these things early enough. And the vows in our wedding, they didn't come by chance. I didn't download something off the internet and we sat down and we discussed them. What do we want the foundation of our relationship to be? And people discuss everything, politics, football, whatever, but the most important decisions of their life, they're not willing to have conversations about it. And then what happens is you grow in resentment for one another because you're hoping for that other person to change and doesn't change. And then you resent them. And then someday you explode, or you go out and cheat and have affairs, or you turn into toxic behavior. Completely unnecessary if you just have the courage to have conversations that are needed. And I talk, from my own experience, I did that mistake myself many times, and I had to hit my head on the wall many times to get here, but I find it's crucial. It's essential.
Yeah, so I guess you should treat your relationship as a partnership.
Absolutely,
And
yeah.
a business partnership, and actually go over it from time to time to review if the business is going well and what you can improve, what's causing trouble to your business and stuff like this, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly like a partnership. It is a partnership. And
Yeah.
like if you start a business, you start a podcast with Maria, if you don't talk about what is your vision for the podcast, like halfway through, unexpected things may come up, but you should have this conversation. So you should have the same conversations with the person you're sharing your whole life with.
Yeah, true. Yeah, also, yeah, I really like your comment about vision board
Mhm.
and the point about dancing on the kitchen and being silly. I feel like, from my experience, my parents always used to tell me quite often that don't act this way,
Mhm.
don't act like a child, and it always was quite annoying because I didn't understand why. Why should I not act like this?
Mhm.
And I believe like everyone has inner idiot that is framed by social frames,
Mhm.
and it's hard to get out of it. It's hard to just act the way you want, just making funny face expression, just acting silly even in public because we are afraid of what other people will think,
Mhm.
But I think it's a true freedom to act the way you want, the way you feel.
Yeah. Do you let that inner idiot? I like the inner child term more, by the way. Just using your language here. Do you let him out when you're alone?
Yeah, actually, I started to do it more often. I used to take improvisation classes as well as acting classes, and it helped me a lot because during those classes there are no social frames, and you have to act as you have to act the way you want, the way you feel. And we had a practice. You have to. There was like a group of people surrounded in circle, and every one of those person would go in the middle of this group, and he would have to play a total freak, like making funny face expression, like acting like like in a really silly way. And for me, it was quite challenging because I saw those people like looking at me, and I saw like, okay, I haven't done it before. What they would think, but knowing that it is a task, so I need to accomplish.
That sounds extremely brave, by the way. Kudos on you.
Yeah, yeah. And right now, I think I'm more willing to open my inner idiot, but not for everyone probably. But I'm working on
It
it.
doesn't have to be for everyone, and it shouldn't be for
Yeah.
everyone. But when you feel like this might be the right person, just let
Yeah.
it out and dance in the kitchen like an idiot if you have to. And if the other person is the right person for you, they will just dance with you. They will not.
Yes, exactly.
But it comes back, like you said, you sit in the home office and you have these traits, then go to a place where you can be that safely and other people maybe are the same and connect with these people. And so show it to the right people. So that doesn't mean that you can be, we always act and play roles at some point
Of course.
of the day. But you can find people where you can show certain parts of your personality, or at
Yeah.
least they expect it. But I think it's a good way to let it out and don't shame yourself into guilt and whatever that you act something you shouldn't be, because I think that's the biggest burden you can have, is that you feel guilty for something you want.
In the past, I used to go to female circles, especially when I was living in Kiev, when girls were gathering like from different backgrounds, and we were doing some kind of magic spiritual stuff, but not always really magic, but just to express ourselves. And it could be also dancing, singing, DIY bracelets, and just talking about everything, what is on your heart. And it was really empowering. I think it's not about like inner idiot, but just inner you, because sometimes you want to be more visible by other people, instead of like, sometimes we watch on each other and we don't see each other.
Oh,
We
yeah.
are strangers, but to open your true face,
Mhm.
it's very important.
Absolutely. You can be sitting by next to someone and miss that person. Like Christian and I were together 24/7, and sometimes if we're at work the whole day, at the end of the day we would be like, how was your day? Like as if we haven't been together, and we are together, but we are not present to each other because we're focused at work. But this type of circles and this type of activities are great ways to really be connected with your authentic self and your inner child and really feel fully expressed and seen. And I think part of why that type of circles work, like you're explaining, Maria, is the sense of feeling accepted by just being, when you're
It's like a tribe.
Yeah.
When you find your tribe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Christian, I have a question to you about middle age crisis among men. Why does it happen in specific age from 40 till 60 usually, and how to deal with it for men?
How to deal with? I believe, so from my point, is that you pursue a certain route in your life, which is probably determined by others, like having a career, having a house, marriage, children. I think it's the standard goals of a man. And I think if you realize them at some point, you maybe find out that you have to give up a lot. So I think I was myself a workaholic to also cope with certain things. So I defined myself through work and having the career and the promotion. And in the beginning, it's exciting, you feel good. But then also at some point, it doesn't mean anything for yourself. I was in being a CEO and we were in successful times, and that didn't mean anything for me. Yeah, I was always looking for the next thing I have to achieve. And I think at some point you just can't do that anymore. I think it's more the point that you burned out, that you are inauthentic, and that feel the consequences, no matter how hard they are, if it's physical or only mentally, and that you have to look into that. And I can say now, like we starting having full-time working on our business, which also means that we work in our business, but everyone has his own project, and not having the career 9 to 5, because I often had the idea to be an entrepreneur, but also I was taught I need to be in safety. And now I realize that it's not really bothering me, the insecurity, the uncertainty I have. Of course, I have less money than I had before at the moment, but it's totally fine, because all the things I bought with them were to compensating some emptiness inside of me. And so the less is more. And I think that at some point you come in realizing, and it explodes, like you said, you resent people, you resent your partner or your friends or the people around you, because you're not talking about that. And I think at some point, I wouldn't say it's a crisis. I would say it's maybe an awakening, that you really take the first time in your life to think, what do I want from my life? Yeah, is this really everything? Should I continue the next 20, 30, 40 years? And I think that's just that you look there. But for many people, and I had the same, you are in the midlife crisis, because I had then a different partner. And
moving to another country.
Now I'm moving to another country. Other will say I'm in a midlife crisis and I want to compensate something, but I want to explore new things. I want to make new experiences, because the routine I was in is not for me. I always wanted to grow, learn new things, experience. I want to challenge and grow. And this I couldn't do in my previous relationship, because my partner wanted to stay in safety. And in the beginning, she also wanted to grow more, but then at some point we grew in different areas and we're not talking about it, or I was not talking about it. I wasn't even aware of it until I met her. And then I came to the realization there is another way for me open. So you stand at the crossroads, and I think there's just something happens to open that up, and you do it, because most of the time we are in a relationship and we hope maybe the other one will cheat on us or whatever,
die.
or die. That problem is solved. Yeah, you don't have to do anything. You're still the good person. And I also lost a lot of people where I'm the bad guy, and this is fine for me, because I found really a lot more people where I'm the good guy and accepted in the way I am. And like today we were bringing Christmas cards, and it was 30 cards, and I said, actually, I'm blessed with a big group of people which I truly connect to. And this I created in the last 3 years mainly. And for that I'm proud, and that I value, because a good job and having the money doesn't mean that much at some point. By being brave enough to open up and share more of yourself, you also give people the opportunity to see you, because most of the time we run through life by pretending something and trying to fit in. So we are like everyone else and people don't know us. And I think what people want is to connect emotionally and see the real people behind the mask we wear. And I think that's where we should work on. And I think that you realize at some point, if it's midlife crisis, awakening, however you call it, that there's more to life.
Yeah.
I like this awakening thing. You should patent that somehow.
Okay.
Register
Probably.
midlife awakening.
Yeah.
Or just awakening.
That is probably already trademarked for someone.
Yeah, well, like I even didn't realize that middle age crisis is exactly what we talked before about losing yourself and losing before and waking up at that point that you realize, yeah, I lost myself before, now I need to reconnect.
Yeah, I think it's just to put a label on something when people act out of what they should
The
do,
norm.
out of the norm. And I think it's just a label, and we love to put labels on everything and judge. And I think the best way to go through life is judge less, especially for yourself. Judge yourself less.
Be curious and more curious and less judgmental. That's what Ted Lasso would say.
Ted Lasso, great show.
Yeah, Diana, Christian, I have a question. Considering all your life learning, all your experience and struggles you went through, how do you define happiness for yourself?
Oh, it's such a complex thing to define. But I think for both of us, we realize that happiness is in the smallest of things. Like Christian was saying, he was a CEO. I had I was a director. I had an international career, traveling the world, doing business, blah, 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 whatever. But what makes us happy really is this dancing in the kitchen and truly connect with the people around you, with sharing good food with the people you love the most. And
I was last week in Portugal to make paperwork there already, and there was sunshine. And I said, it feels so good just to feel the sun on your skin. So, and I think it's just to value what is really good for you and what you appreciate. I think that's happiness. I don't know. I think for me, it's a big word and it's not really true, but I think is have the energy and be happy to wake up every day and hope for the best opportunities and have the mindset that there's the chance to be a really good day for you, instead of having the mindset that it will be a shitty day. Because if you wake up with the mindset that it's a shitty day, then it will be a shitty day, because that's the lenses you wear to see the world around you.
I see that, like, maybe we sound like crazy hippies who want to live in a mountain. Butterflies and stuff like that. No, but it's really like it boils down to the little things, and you understand this more and more. And like I had a conversation with Maria a couple of days ago about acne and skin health, and I told her that I struggle with acne too, and I have a lot of acne in my back. And I on my wedding day, I wore my dream dress, and my back was completely open. I couldn't care less, like I didn't. And I think this comes a little bit with age, but it also comes with a lot of personal growth and being in peace with yourself. You stop caring about things that, like, I don't know, if I did this when I was 25, it would probably be like the worst thing ever. Oh my God, people will see my skin on my back and they will judge and they will comment, whatever. And now it's just like, who cares? I had a beautiful wedding. I had the people I love the most around me. We danced, we laughed, we had good food. Again with the food. But I think that's really happiness. And I think, of course, for both of us as coaches as well, is working with other people and help them find their happiness. Because that's like there's no greater joy than being of service to others. I think there's nothing more fulfilling than helping other people find their joy. And I think happiness comes from that. So that's exactly why we're moving countries, to build a life based on that, where we can have sunshine, good food, be surrounded by the people we love, and dedicate our lives to helping other people find their own happiness.
Yeah.
And
I think, like Mitro said, have a purpose in life. And I read a book. It's about studies in happiness at work. And then he was in a in a care center. And then he found out that the cleaning people were the happiest people there, because they found that by cleaning that, they have helping the other people to have a better life and quality, and they believed it and they could see it. So they were actually more happier. They had not the best salaries. Probably they had to work hard, but they just felt they made an impact and positive. So I think that's also important.
Yeah, I really like your answer, and especially, Christian, I really like your comment about noticing small things like sunshine, just good weather. And for me, it's super important. And I only lately started to practicing noticing small details like beautiful weather, maybe some dimmed yellow light on the street when walking in the evening time in summertime, hearing some nice music, and just trying to enjoy these moments.
Yeah.
And when if you're able to enjoy such small moments, you just you become more happier.
Recently, I was dealing with like some health issues, and asked one acquaintance like her advice on that, because she works in holistic field, how to support your body. And for example, when as an example, somebody has back pain, but the greatest thing you can do is to be grateful that all your other body parts, they function properly and everything is okay. So to be grateful for that your legs walk, that your heart beats, you can breathe, you can eat, you can taste food. And it's so many amazing things to be grateful for, even starting from your body, when we even don't realize that. And I even don't mention the things that surround us. I try daily, sometimes it doesn't happen daily, but to write what I'm grateful for. Sometimes these things, they're so funny, and I love reading them after some time, that sometimes I got a compliment from a stranger, or it could be just coffee, like in a nice coffee shop in Hamburg, or a quote. Different things, but there are always things to be grateful for and happy.
Yeah,
for.
it's very important to be present to the positive things and grateful for, like, not focus only on what you don't have that you should be having, whatever. There is a fine line, and I think this is an important topic to address. Like, there's a lot of like positive psychology talk and a lot of positivity, positive vibes only. And I think we just like want to clarify, like, there has to be like a certain balance in that too, because sometimes life sucks and that's okay. And sometimes you hate everything and that's also okay. And sometimes you're struggling and you're suffering and that's also okay. Whatever you're feeling, it's okay. Like, on a daily basis, it's very important to notice the things that you're grateful for. And like, we do that too. And like, just the warmth of the sun on your face, sometimes it feels like $1 million. It's such an amazing feeling. And of course, try to be as positive as possible. But when you're struggling, also be conscious that you're struggling and why you're struggling, and search for help if you want to, and voice your emotions as they are. And like, this positive vibes only mentality bothers me a little bit, because I know there are people I notice, for example, with women that I approach and I talk to in the concept of relationships, they are dealing with a breakup. And what happens after is, I'm fine. Like, everything's okay. I'll put on my best dress and my high heels and I'm going to go out with my girls. I don't care about that guy. What's meant to be is going to come my way and everything's fine. Like, it's great to have a positive attitude, but maybe feel your emotions first. Maybe deal with that anger, that frustration, that fear, that grief, that feel of rejection first, before you put on your high heels and a dress and, get your girls around. So there has to be a certain balance. And I think this topic is not talked enough in the scope of mental health and coaching and personal growth. there has to be a balance, like feel your emotions, be with your emotions. I have this people asking me this question a lot, like, oh, when you're sad, when you're down, what do you do to go through it? And I said, nothing. I just be with it. Like the only way out is through. If you're sad, be sad. And like sometimes I tell Christian, like, I feel like shit. And okay, today we're going to feel like shit. And that's okay, because we are people. We are humans and we have feelings, we have emotions, and life is not always sunshine and butterflies. And if you struggle to get out of it, then definitely search for help. And on the other days, yes, then look for the positive things and the things to be grateful for, and not focus on the things that you don't have.
Great. Thank you.
Great. Thank you a lot, guys.
I will write today in my notes that I'm grateful for this podcast and this.
Thank you. We're grateful too. It's really fun, and it's really nice to have like meaningful and serious conversations.
Yeah, I think we learned a lot from you, and I really enjoyed this podcast.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're our inspiration.
If you enjoyed this episode and want to stay updated with our future content and support what we are doing, don't forget to give it a thumb up, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you never miss our latest episode.